IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, post-game edition. First time we've gotten to say that in quite some time. Happy Saturday for those of you who just got done watching or just got done attending Notre Dame's 95th annual Blue Gold game. That concluded. Brian and I were both there. It was super cool. We kind of see like up in the press box, like through some of like the plexiglass, we saw Vince and Sean Stiers and Jesse Stiers on the radio call on Sunny 101.5. So that was also really cool to see. So there's a big IB showing today at the Notre Dame Blue Gold game. And folks, what we're going to be doing today, simple old-fashioned post-game show. We're going to be breaking down overall thoughts, talking about what we saw from the offense, talking about what we saw from the defense, man. And then, Brian, of course, it's just always fun to be up at that stadium. That's something that you and I were talking about before the Blue Gold game even started.
Yeah, it was, man. It's like, I've been doing this, Trev. This is still kind of new for you. Obviously, this is just you're going into your third season covering Notre Dame, and obviously your second spring game that you've been to covering Notre Dame. I've been doing this since 2010, and man, it just does not get old. It really doesn't. Just looking over the skyline and being in the stadium and getting to watch Notre Dame football perform, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And it doesn't matter how fun or entertaining or not entertaining a spring game is, it's still cool to be up there.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. It never gets old. And then obviously I'm going into my third year being able to be up in the press box. That definitely has not gotten old yet. Still a really cool experience to be a part of. But again, folks, 95th annual Blue Gold game for Notre Dame. The blue team, the offense, ended up winning on a walk-off field goal by Spencer Porath to put them up 41-38 to give the offense the win. But I think partly the new scoring system, also kind of the mix of vanilla offense, defense for today's game made this a lot more competitive than last year. You also factor in there's no battle for QB1 this year, so there weren't as many fireworks today. But, overall, Brian, before we dive into offense, defense, takeaways, players who stood out, what are some of your overall thoughts from the Blue Gold game today?
Well, it didn't seem like there was any major injuries in the game. We did see Joey O'Brien coming off at the end, but he seemed like, from what all indications are, it wasn't anything major, just a minor thing. So that was good. But look, it was competitive. The guys competed. It was, a good back and forth between the offense and defense. Defense, I thought, controlled action early. Offense kind of got hot a little bit in the middle. Defense kind of dominated the end, and then the blue team was gifted a field goal attempt on a drive they didn't necessarily earn. But it was a fun day. Overall, it was a fun day, competitive day, a lot of action. It was like I said, no major injuries, which is always the best. Yeah.
Yeah, coming away with no major injuries is obviously the number one goal. And then it goes back to what we talked about on Thursday, what we wanted to see. We wanted to see, the kids out there being competitive, having fun, no injuries. I think all those boxes got checked. And at the end of the day, we're going to dive into some of these things here, but we all have to keep in mind, good or bad, Notre Dame doesn't have to be ready to walk out against Wisconsin next week. This is not the complete product. There's a lot of things we didn't see today. We didn't see Leonard Moore today. We didn't see Gerby Lambert today, on top of all of the other players that were also still out for the spring. As fun as it is to talk about how they're favorites on FanDuel to win the national title, that game is not for quite some time. January 25th is quite a ways away. So there's still time, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to break some stuff down. The things that we see, the things that we did not see, overall takeaways. For me, Brian, it felt like a very vanilla day, and I feel like I'm kind of a broken record from a week ago talking about the Jersey scrimmage, but there are some things that I was hoping to see that we didn't. We'll talk about that when we get to the defensive segment. But look, there were some core things that both units do or typically did throughout the spring that we didn't even see today, in my opinion. So overall, it was good to see a lot of the young guys out there making plays. And I knew coming into this, I wasn't expecting CJ Carr to go out and light up the scoreboard. I wasn't expecting Jordan Faison to leave the spring game with 7 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it was cool to see a lot of the young guys out there making plays. It was cool to see Devin Fitzgerald catch his first touchdown pass inside of Notre Dame Stadium. Cool to see Jonas Walton get into the end zone first time in Notre Dame Stadium. So all in all, man, it was a fun day, and there's never any complaints from me when I'm up in South Bend on that campus when it's 68 and clear skies.
Yeah, look, it was a very vanilla scrimmage. I mean, anyone that studies the offensive or defensive system, if you're complaining about what we saw on offense or defense today, you're basically going off of your preconceived opinions of what you think about the offense or defense. This was a very vanilla scrimmage, and that's not a complaint. It's an observation. I didn't expect a whole lot. And we'll kind of talk more about that as we dive into it. But you wanted to see some guys out there get in action. It was nice to see Aeneas Williams out there. But again, like there was a couple runs like on one of the offensive scoring drives. There was a nice little 5-6 yard run from Aeneas Williams. But as soon as Jaden Osbury steps into the hole, he stops. And it's like, well, what is he supposed to do? He can't go. If he goes forward, he's going to hit the running back, and he's not allowed to hit the running back. So it was a very vanilla scrimmage. And somebody in the chat said, yeah, that's intentional. I don't think that we expected anything different. But you just wanted to have a good day where they're out there competing and out there having fun. And I thought even though it was vanilla, I did think it was competitive, Trevor. I mean, you had receivers competing for the ball, sometimes winning, sometimes not. I thought the D-line and the O-line had some really good battles today. And you guys saw today a little bit of what we saw in the Jersey scrimmage last week, where it was really a back and forth. It's like there were times like it looked like the offense was starting to kind of get things going, and then there was times when the defense kind of rallied, and that kind of back and forth is what you want to see, from a team. You don't want to see a team come out and dominate in a setting like this, because that means, like as I've said before, that the other side of the ball probably didn't play that great. But it was a beautiful day, big crowd. They said that it was 45,000, which was second most all time. What year the record was, Trev? Did you hear when they said that?
2007.
2007. People were excited to see Jimmy Clausen in 2007, brother. There's no doubt about that.
I believe it. Yeah, man.
That's that. There's not a. It's not a coincidence that Jimmy Clausen's first spring game happened to set the attendance record. That was certainly a big storyline, and the team obviously is coming off 2 great seasons. But good crowd. I thought the crowd was into it. A lot of big time recruits on campus today. It's just strong. Jeremiah Love was there. Ian Book's doing the color, which was wild, and just an overall strong Notre Dame day. No doubt about that. Angela got a picture taken with Jeremiah Love. She said she was sitting there. He was beside her, and he looks at her, and she says hi, and he sees her IB hat, and he's like, "Hey, I committed on that podcast," which just made her day. And so she got a selfie with Jeremiah Love. So it was an awesome day all around. We'll talk some football next, Trev. Just so people, a reminder, we will be talking. We'll go here till about 6 o'clock. We'll talk about the scrimmage, and then we'll kind of preview the pending decision of Zayden Gamble, who's going to be committing tonight around 6 o'clock. He'll be committing to either Notre Dame, Ohio State, Miami, or Florida. So we'll cover that one as well. But beautiful day. Got a chance to meet some people coming in and out of the stadium, some Irish Breakdown listeners, which we greatly appreciate. Always appreciate when you guys get a chance to say hi to us. But Trev, let's kind of kick things off a little bit with the offense today. Not the sharpest day on offense. I thought CJ wasn't sharp early. You had some drops at receiver. Some things I didn't love, but I also liked the competitiveness of the offensive line. They had some wins and some losses, but I thought they got after it pretty good today. Just overall, what were your thoughts on what you saw from the offense today?
Yeah, I think inconsistence, the proper word. We saw some good. We saw some sloppy. Again, to be expected in practice 15 of the offseason. They have 25 more to go. So I think the best of this unit is very much still ahead of them, but saw some good and some bad. Again, you were down 2 of your projected starters on the offensive line, obviously with Gerby Lambert out, and then Ashton Craig's availability for the first game still being kind of up in the air, but we saw some good things from Joe Otting over the course of the spring. But again, it was up and down. Little promise because, we saw Jaden Greathouse in full pads going through, because typically when players are being held out, but they're still going through practice, they'll be in shorts, and shoulder pads and helmets. But Jaden Greathouse was fully dressed today. They still kept him out for obvious reasons, making sure he gets back to full health for fall camp. So, but, it was good. Good to see some of the young guys making some plays. Like I said earlier, cool to see Jonas Walton and Devin Fitzgerald score their first touchdowns in a Notre Dame uniform inside of the stadium. But overall, it was sloppy. I think in the middle, and I believe it's the second period where the offense went on their 2 longest drives of the day, and they really started to put it together. So the biggest takeaway is inconsistent, but showed a lot of flashes.
Yeah, to start off at quarterback, obviously CJ Carr early was a little bit rusty. sailed the ball a couple times. This is the first not great day we've seen from CJ. CJ was very good last week in the Jersey scrimmage. He diced the defense up pretty good. A little bit sharp today, but then, of course, he decides, I'm just going to go ahead and throw a no-look pass. I didn't notice it live from up in the stadium because I'm downfield watching the routes develop. And I loved the read. It was a great play yet, an offsides by Bryce Young. CJ knows he can take a shot. And, does the no-look pass, hits a seam route, a bending. Mylan Graham bends it inside, hits it, with him. And, it was a really good pass. But he wasn't sharp today. I don't care. I mean, it's like I've said before, I'm not going to make any evaluations, but I was very happy to see that somebody just said Gabriel Rubio just got picked by the Steelers. That's freaking awesome. So we said that hopefully somebody takes a chance, but CJ was not sharp today, but he also made some big throws today down the field or, over the middle of the field. It was a okay day. Had a couple drops. The receiving core had some drops, not Leonard Moore, Micah Gilbert. He's got to be more aggressive going after the ball on a deep shot to him, so I thought the pass game today definitely was not clicking, but also Trev, I'm sitting there watching the plays they're running. They ran basically 5 plays all day. It was a very vanilla, and the defense was sitting on stuff. Like they're sitting on the stop routes. They're sitting on the hitch routes. Like they know what's coming, and they sat on a lot of that, so that you could tell that factored a little bit into it, but with the first team. But also part of it's credit to the defense. I mean, they were tight in coverage for the most part, and overall, I just didn't think it was super sharp.
Yeah, to your point, nothing that CJ was going to do today was going to give me any inclination of what we're going to see on September 6th. I mean, he's a FanDuel favorite to win the Heisman Trophy for a reason, and I really don't worry about what I saw from him today. But some of the other quarterbacks, Brian, we saw a lot of promising things, and this was the first time that I had gotten to see Blake Hebert in any competitive capacity, because on the first practice, it was just helmets. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't go to any of the partial practices that we had availability at. And then on the Jersey scrimmage, he was in shorts, and he was going through some of the warm-up drills, looked a little inconsistent, had a little bit of a brace on, but today he was fine. And first time getting to see him competitively, and he impressed me on a couple of throws. We talked before, Brian, and speculated that it could be a very up and down day. He runs hot and cold sometimes anyways, and I figured there'd be a little bit of rust with the consistency of his availability in some of the competitive periods in practice. But outside of the no-look pass, he probably had the most impressive throw of the day, that touchdown to Elijah Burris.
That was a rope. That was a rope. The thing with Blake, first let's look at the good. He's got a good arm. He showed it on that play. Really nice, quick, compact release. Not only put some heat on it, but he's got such a quick, compact release. You can't really react quickly to the football. It gets out there really fast. He put it where only Elijah Burris had a chance to catch it. It was either going to be a catch by Elijah or it was going to be an incomplete pass. And you get the ball over top of Thomas Davis, who's 6'2" with really long arms, and Luke Towage, who's 6'4" with really long arms. That's a heck of a pass. But but the issue for Blake is he'll make some great plays like that. He had a good scramble. You saw his athleticism. And then he'll have some where you're just like, what the heck? He had back-to-back outcuts to a running back, slides to a running back. One is 5 feet over his head, one just thrown into the ground. They ran a flea flicker late, and he's got Jack Larson wide open, and he just throws to the back. He doesn't read it at all, just rushed through his reads. But then he'll make some plays where that are really flashy. And he needed a day like this, Trev, to be honest with you, because he had been out a lot at the end and hadn't performed well in some of the open scrimmages. I think Blake needed a sort of a confidence-boosting final performance, and I think he absolutely did that in this game. We can pick apart this throw and that throw, but the reality is he made some big throws. He threw the deep ball to Cam Williams that, Cam went up and made a great catch. And, he like I said, had to scramble at 7 for 1,103 yards, but then other times he just makes some mistakes where you're just like, man, like that you got to make, that's an easy throw. That's a layup. That's an uncontested fast break. No one's on that side of the court layup, and you got to make those. So you saw some good from Blake today. And when he's good, Trev, it's impressive. I mean, he had a couple really nice throws. He's just got to eliminate. I mean, if Blake can just do the layups, that makes him a far more effective quarterback. because as you saw today, he can make some plays. And a day like today also isn't ideal for Blake to show off his entire repertoire, because he's a guy that you can call, if Blake Hebert was the starting quarterback at any point in time, the run game is going to look a little different than it did today, because you're going to have some quarterback runs. You're going to have some scrambles. So that kind of eliminated one of his strengths. So overall, there's some things that I'm definitely going to get in the film room with him and say, you got to do better here. You got to do better there. But I'm also going to walk away from that meeting and make sure he knows, hey, this right here, that's what you can do, my man. This right here, that's what you can do, my man. Give me more of that. Just make these layups and start letting that stuff be what dominates, and you've got a shot to win this number 2 job. But that's going to be the next key for Blake in this battle.
Same could be said for Noah Grubbs. I'm with you, man. He had a very interesting day, made some good throws, also looked like a freshman at times, because fact of the matter is he is a true freshman. Mike Denbrock said something that was really interesting in his post-game press conference about Noah Grubbs, and he got asked a question about, how has he progressed and, what strides has he taken, and obviously complimented him on the progress he made from day one to now. But Denbrock said that he intentionally called the same play twice in a row. And he said the first one, he took his medicine, took a check down, took what the defense gave him. Denbrock then proceeded to call the same exact play again, and then that's when he tried to bang the backside dig, which got picked off by Ethan Long. And so it was one of those where it's like, hey, look, lesson learned. We can get into the film room. We can dive into what this means for you. But said overall, you had a good spring, and Noah Grubbs had a good spring. And I think today kind of encapsulated what the growth that we saw from Noah Grubbs. The poor kid was swimming on day one. They threw him into the deep end to see what he could do. His arm talent impressed people, not us, because we knew what they were getting with Noah Grubbs. But on day one, a lot of questions about, man, did you see this, happening from him today? And it was like, yeah, we saw it on film. He won Mr. Football in Florida. He won the state championship. But today it was kind of a microcosm of his progression over spring.
Mm-hmm.
Some really good, and then some times where, hey, yeah, that's a true freshman.
It's the same story we said about Blake, right? I mean, that's the thing, is you saw some throws where you're like, that's why he's at Notre Dame. And then you saw some throws and said, that's why he's not ready to be the guy at Notre Dame. I mean, that's what we saw. I mean, the deep ball they ran a slot fade, and it was a busted coverage by the slot defender. He sees it right away, gets the ball over top to Devin Fitzgerald. There was a play, too, that was intended for Elijah Burris that was incredibly well defended. It was an over route, but he threw an absolute rope, stepped in the pocket, threw a rope, and it was in a place where it's like it's going to be impossible to catch, but it was a play where it was out in front where the defender couldn't, pick it off, but, it was a rope. You can see some of that arm talent, and then you can see some of the misses and things like that, and the things he's got to learn. But I really thought that Noah showed a lot of growth. Noah and Blake both showed a lot of growth throughout the spring. With Noah, we got the chance to see him 2 workouts in a row. Unfortunately, we only got to see Blake today. We didn't get to see him in the Jersey scrimmage. But they both showed growth. They both competed, and they both showed off that they've got legit arm talent. That's the reality. They have legit arm talent. It's just you've got a lot to clean up. Footwork got Noah and Blake in trouble a couple times. He just that's often when he messes up. It's his footwork gets him out of sync. And there's a couple times where Noah started to look down at the rush instead of keeping his eyes downfield, and that's all part of the learning process for these 2 young quarterbacks. But what I liked about today, Trevor, is we saw a lot of things that a lot of teach tape that you got to get better at. But we also saw a lot where if you're Mike Denbrock and Gino Gadula, you're going to be like, give me more of this. Give me more of this. And I'm comfortable with where the battle is right now. I'm sure the coaches aren't, because you don't want uncertainty as a coach. But for me personally, I like the growth that they both made. Now it's about building on how you finished off the spring. And as we said, both guys had some mistakes today. Both guys had some really nice throws today. And now they've got a lot to build on. But I thought both showed growth from the beginning of spring to the end of spring. Pleased with the development we've seen from them. And Blake, obviously, we would have liked to see a little bit more. He was out for a little bit, but it was good to get a chance. I think Blake much more than Noah needed a good game today. I think Blake really needed a good performance today. And Yeah, because like people are in the chat like, oh, he's number 2, and I keep hearing about guys. I'm telling you right now, Noah Grubbs is on the verge of beating Blake Hebert out for the number 2 job. I'm just telling you that right now. That's why I think Blake really needed a performance like this at the end of the spring to give him some confidence and some momentum going into the summer when Teddy Gerard arrives, and then to set him up for the fall, so he can kind of build on this. Because if Blake can repeat days like this, and days where he doesn't have a red jersey on so he can kind of use his legs a little bit more, that's how he's going to have a shot to win that number 2 job.
Yeah, Blake Hebert absolutely pulled the Lee Corso not so fast, my friend. We got a mailbag question about that on Friday about, hey, if you had to pick today, who's the number 2 quarterback? And we both said Noah Grubbs. But
yeah,
if Blake can continue to stack performance,
right.
Same. I still think going into summer and fall camp, he's in pole position. But if Blake can continue stacking days like this, it's going to be very competitive. Let's talk about the running backs today, Brian. And it was an interesting day for them. One, because the running back that I believe led the team in carries today, well, one behind the leader, was Aeneas Williams. And you have to take some of those numbers with a grain of salt because it's like, well, they can't tackle him. Mm-hmm. They're not allowed to bring him to the ground. It was good to see him out with the first team. That's what made today a little bit more difficult to evaluate, especially with the first team offense because they were going thud. Mm-hmm. And I said at times struggle to use the term thud. Sometimes it looked like two-hand touch. Yeah. But overall today, Brian, what were some of your thoughts on the running backs that you got to see today?
Well, I thought they ran well. There oftentimes wasn't the room to run was inconsistent. It was nice to see Aeneas out there. It was nice to see him just kind of, looking quick. His timing was a little off early, Trev. I thought things looked a little bit rushed early, but there wasn't a lot of room. I thought he got a little bit more comfortable as we got into it. There was one drive, the scoring drive they had, where he was basically the offense for a drive. He had 7 carries for 28 yards. He had a catch for 8 yards. And it was just grinding out tough yards. It wasn't like a real sexy drive. It was just Aeneas kind of getting 4 or 5. A couple times maybe he doesn't get 4 if the defense is allowed to hit him. A couple times maybe he runs through a defender if he's allowed to hit them. So I thought overall it was good. I just felt like the timing was a little bit off, which is to be expected because he hasn't taken a ton of team stuff until the last couple weeks. But he looked good. I was actually impressed by Jonas. His numbers aren't going to blow you away. 11 carries for 33 yards. But a lot of the reasons his numbers won't blow you away is because the line he was running behind, second and third line he was running behind, was getting knocked back a little bit because the defensive line at number 2 and number 3 right now is a little bit further ahead than the offensive line is at 2 and 3, which is, not a surprise. But I thought Jonas was decisive when he needed to be. He made good decisions and he made good cuts. Like the bounce he had, which set up his longest run of the day, was a really impressive run. I was impressed by what we saw from Jonas or from Jonas Walton today. I think some of the numbers too in the final stats are messed up because they have Nolan James Jr. is only having 1 carry for 1 yard. And that's not accurate. I think some of the early carries in the game that went to Jonas and Aeneas were actually credited to that went to Nolan were credited to them. So I don't put a lot on the stats. I'm gonna have to see if Notre Dame sent the updated stats here real quick. Let me see if they have some updated stats here. No, they didn't fix those stats. But I know that Nolan James had more than 1 carry in the game. But again, he didn't really get a whole lot of chances. They ran a couple stretch plays to him, and the line just got beat. So there wasn't a lot of room to run for the running backs. But there was a couple times they started to have some nice push. And the thing for the offensive line today with the running backs was like they're just you could tell the timing isn't there yet, which is not a huge surprise when you've got a remade offensive line and backs trying to figure it out. So, but overall, backs ran hard, good checkdowns, caught the ball well. They threw the backs a lot to the backs again today, which we've seen them do in the past. That was fun to see. I think you had 3 catches from Aeneas. You had 1 from Curtis Smith, 1 from Jonas Walton. So you had a couple other throws to backs that were not completed. So we saw a solid day from the backs, in my opinion. Solid day from the backs. Just not a lot of room to run. But I've been really impressed with Jonas Walton the last 2 times we've seen him. I have, Trev. He does not look like a freshman as much as I would have thought he was. I mean,
No.
there's a couple runs where you're like, oh man, he won't make that mistake next year in the spring. Like next spring, if that hole's there, he's going to hit it. But overall, man, he's really quick and decisive. He's got really nice feet. I mean, we saw it on high school film, but it's one thing to see it on high school film. It's another thing to see him do it against Notre Dame players.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a problem for people. Jonas is a good football player. He took, I think, I could be wrong. You know, we were only there for 5 of the 15 practices, and 2 of those 5 we got to see him do drills. But I was really impressed the last 2, the Jersey scrimmage last week and then the game today. Really impressed with Jonas Walton.
Yeah, agreed completely. He's grown a lot this spring, man. I'm with you. Let's talk about the wide receivers, and we saw a lot from the younger guys today. Not surprised we didn't get to see a whole lot of Jordan Faison. I think he ended the day like 1 catch for 4 yards. He had one that I think could have went for significantly more yards, but it was during the thud period. It was like a 4th and 2 conversion, and I think he would have had a chance to make it to the house if it wasn't thud. But besides the point, got to see a lot of different wide receivers in the rotation today. Believe the starters that trotted out there were Jordan Faison, Mylan Graham, and Micah Gilbert. That was the first team wide receivers. But again, we saw basically every receiver that was available to play today played, and a lot of takeaways, man, especially from the young ones.
Yeah, well, first of all, we'll go with someone who's not super young, but Cam Williams led the team in receptions today. It was nice to see them trying to get him the football today. He still has some things to learn as far as just consistency, but the go route, he absolutely beat the defender, made a great play for the football, hauls it in, and then does some things after the catch. That was nice to see. They tried to get him the ball a couple other times, and there wasn't a whole lot of room to go. He had a 53-yard catch and finished with 3 catches for 57 yards. I thought Cam did some nice things. Devin Fitzgerald did some nice things again. I'm looking forward to fall camp because I'm hoping we get a chance to see Devin Fitzgerald go against Mark Zachary, Dallas Golden, Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, because these freshmen and walk-on DBs have 0 chance against Devin Fitzgerald, like none, because he's been doing that every practice we've been at against the 2s and 3s. It's just like, this isn't fair to him. Like, Trev, and that's not being said in a way to tamp down his performance today. Just so we're clear on what I'm saying here. I'm not saying, oh, well, I don't put a lot of stock in his 3 catches for 54 yards because he was beating walk-ons and the freshman. Well, he was beating a freshman that we had as a 4-star recruit all spring. It's more of praising him, and he's just torching those young guys. It's like, man, I want to see him go against the big dogs because he's got a chance to do something. I thought both of them were far more impressive today than Micah Gilbert. I was very disappointed by Micah Gilbert's performance. He's got to make a better play on the ball on that deep shot, Trevor. Like, this has been my knock on him for 3 years. He does so many good things, but it's like, you're 6'2", 210 pounds. You've got to fight for the ball more there. You can't keep drifting. You've got to go up for the football. If your DB's behind you and you let the ball come here, he's going to have a chance to break it up. You've got to go up and make a more aggressive play for the football. And that's been a common theme for him. And how many times, Trev, did I show you on the TV copy, watch this route by Micah Gilbert? And he just kind of jogs off the ball. And then one time CJ throws it out of bounds, and you're like, go watch the replay. Go look how slow that comeback route was. And it was right after he'd run a deep shot, which, I mean, I kind of understand. And, but I was disappointed with his performance today, to be honest with you. Just the lack of competitiveness, because we've heard how good he was in the winter. And honestly, we haven't seen a lot of him in the practice. The first practice we saw him just, abuse Mark Zachary a little bit, but the Jersey scrimmage, he was completely locked down by Leonard Moore. And today, going against Jaden Sanders, he beats him and then doesn't go out and make a play for the football. Then after that, we just didn't see him really do a whole lot. So I was a little disappointed today from what I saw from Micah Gilbert. I expected more from him today. And look, I know it's a blue gold game and it doesn't matter, but when it's your effort that's a little bit like, like I'd be curious if like maybe he's dealing with like something. Did he have like a little bit of a tweak when he ran the deep shot? Because he looked great on the deep shot. He ran right by Jaden Sanders. He just wasn't the same after that. So I'm kind of wondering if like, did he get bumped and he didn't say anything about it? after that, like it would not shock me if we found out, like, yeah, he bruised his knee on that play, but didn't say anything to the trainers about it. That's why he wasn't running with no juice after that. That wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, Trev, because he was a very different player after that play. But it could also be just he was discouraged and didn't have the same focus. I don't know, but it really wouldn't shock me if we found out that, like, he didn't say something. He should have said something to trainers. There was something going on with him because he basically disappeared after that.
I'm definitely hoping it's the former between those two options. Definitely not the latter, but a lot of evaluation to go. But I'm with you. It was a rough day for Micah Gilbert out there. I agree completely. Let's talk about tight ends, Brian, and this one I'm going to lean a little bit more on you for, because I mean, to give you guys a window in, I was watching defense today. Brian was watching offense. Now, obviously, they were going best on best the entire time, so we saw some things. But unfortunately, some of the things I saw from the tight end was like Ty Washington's drop. I wasn't evaluating how they were as run blockers. So all in all, Brian, what were some of your takeaways from the tight end group today?
So with the tight ends and the O-line, we'll be a little bit more brief because we'll go back and watch the film and, spend more time on the offensive line. But the one thing I was able to see today, Trev, is I thought the blocking from Cooper Flanagan was very impressive today. From what I could see. I can't watch 11 guys at once, and the TV copy was so far behind what was happening live that I usually, like, during a game, I'll be able to watch the play in between plays. I can watch the play that just happened, so I'll watch it. So it's like kind of my operation of the game. I watch the skill players because I can't see those on TV. Watch the receiver routes, watch the coverage, and then when the play's over, in between plays, I'll watch, the TV copy will be just far enough behind where I can watch the TV copy, and then I go back to watching the live game. They were so far behind today that if I kept watching the TV copy, I'd be, I'd miss it. And I tried pausing it and going back and watching it, but so I was able to catch some of it. But I thought Cooper Flanagan was playing very physical today. They were running some load blocks with him, just going up through the hole. He's physical. He gets low. He's physical. He really looks for punishment. So it's good to see him getting after it a little bit today. I thought Jack Larson showed off some wheels today. He was wide open on a wheel route on that flea flicker. He was wide. That would have been a touchdown if they'd have thrown him the football. But he, I thought Jack had a solid day in the run game from what I could tell. I didn't notice James Flanagan much. He was out there, but I didn't get eyes on him a whole lot. So I'll go back and watch more of him. When we're done here, probably tonight, I'll go back and watch some more of him. And then obviously Ty Washington's got to catch that football. It's just simple as that. He stopped and then let the ball kind of go, hits him in the hands and goes up in the air, and he's not able to make it. Move to the tight end, Trev. We missed a receiver. There was a couple receivers I wanted to talk about before we moved on. I wanted to talk about Elijah Burris and Mylan Graham, which forgot, but that's my bad. But I thought Mylan Graham, there was one pass I thought he's got to fight for a little bit more and try to catch that, but then he also got lit up by Don Schuler. And I think Gideon Rosa was like, does Don have some personal beef with Mylan? Because he lays that guy out. But, it's just that's the competitiveness. But there are some other things you saw from Mylan today that were impressive, like the seam route, just bending it in front of the safe. As soon you saw it on TV, you guys all saw that's exactly the route he hit the defense with last week that we were talking about. Where as soon as he clears the linebacker, he bends it, or actually it would have been the nickel. As soon as he clears like the linebacker level, he bends it inside in front of the safety, and then CJ hits him. That was the no-look pass. And Mylan has shown, I feel, a pretty good feel for getting open when against zone. And he's certainly seen a lot of zone this spring. But, he has a real good sense of getting open against the zone. I wish we could see more of him against man coverage, but they just don't play a lot of man coverage at Notre Dame anymore, apparently, at least in the spring. But I thought he looked smooth after the catch, but we watched him a lot during pregame, Trevor, and he's just one of those guys that, like, he just looks different. He's high cut. He's just smooth. It's just everything looks real natural. I've been really impressed with him athletically, and so it was nice the last couple games to be able to see him make some plays. And there was a play where I thought CJ should have gone to him on a slot fade that I thought could have maybe been a big play if he would have seen him. And then I thought Elijah Burris had a good day as well. Elijah's one of those ones that he's just got to keep getting stronger, and he's got to be a little bit more competitive for the football in traffic. That is an issue for me for a lot of the receivers today. And other than maybe Cam Williams, I didn't think the receivers fought for the ball enough in some of those situations. That's been a knock the last couple of years. That's one thing I need to see them do more, is really fight for the ball. And sometimes fighting for the ball is understanding when you're going this way and a DB is coming this way, you've got to kind of level that. You don't need to keep leveling it off or drift. You've got to come back to the ball and attack the football. Use your body to do a better job of shielding them. And the receivers as a whole need to do better with that. But outside of that, I mean, Elijah did some good things. Had a couple grabs, and of course made a really nice catch on the touchdown pass. Went up and got it and got open, got to the back line, and was able to go up and make a play. So I thought seeing Milan and Elijah Burris today was nice to see.
Agreed. All throughout spring, we've kind of just confirmed what we had hoped Milan Graham was going to be, and obviously a lot of hype coming in. Not every day Notre Dame gets a transfer portal wide receiver from Ohio State, let alone two. Makes me excited for what we're going to see from Quincy Porter in the fall. But I'm with you, man. There's some things that Elijah Burris has to continue to work on if he wants to crack that six-man rotation. But again, I thought the spring was a good step in the right direction for him as a whole. But yeah, I'm with you on Milan Graham, bro. I mean, I think he's going to be a real good player for Notre Dame this year. Let's talk about the offensive line and kind of dive into them. And real quick, I'll give my thoughts on them. And again, to Brian's point, we'll have to go back through and dive into the film because it's so hard to watch all five offensive linemen live. That's one where we have to sit down and crack open the film. But first impressions, Brian, you can correct me or you can tell me if you saw this a little bit differently. Nobody stood out as like the proverbial weak link today on the offensive line. There wasn't one guy where I sat down and was like, yeah, he's consistently the one being beat. Thought it was competitive today in the trenches on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any offensive lineman that probably had the most, like he got beat, was probably Matty Augustine. But even then, I thought there was a lot of really good reps from Matty Augustine as well. I think the left side of the line is starting to figure it out a little bit in the run game. Their timing was better today. I thought Anthony Knapp and Joe Otting had a couple really nice combo blocks. There was one play, they had Tion Gray on absolute skates. I mean, they took him 4 or 5 yards off the ball. I'll have to go back and watch the hold again. Just seeing it live and looking at the replay real quick, I thought it was a little questionable, the hold on Anthony Knapp. I will still say this. One of the critiques that we've talked about multiple times with CJ Carr, he's got to do a better job manipulating the pocket. And that's something we didn't really see today, but it's kind of hard to do when you've got a red jersey on because, once you move, you kind of think like, okay, play's over. But there's a couple plays like that. But I thought overall, that what I liked from the offensive line today is they were a lot more physical in pass pro today. That's something I noticed is like there wasn't this heavy retreat and where they just could kind of, as soon as they get engaged, they just get knocked back. And we saw that in the Jersey scrimmage last week as well, Trev. I don't know if it's just different players. I don't know if it's something that's being emphasized by the offensive line coach. I'm not sure what the reason is, but they're much more physical at the engagement point in pass pro than we've seen in recent years. And that's giving CJ, for the most part, little cleaner pockets to step into in the game. But I thought overall they looked good. I thought Sully Absher, from what I could tell, again, got to go back and watch the film. I may change my mind later, but I thought he had some really good movement snaps in the run game. I thought Joe and Anthony Knapp, as I said, had some good movement. And I thought Will Black handled himself in pass pro. There's a couple times he overset and they beat him inside on a move. And he's so athletic, he can plant and redirect and recovered very well and was able to get a body on it to where he didn't get beaten. You're going to have some of those mistakes as a young offensive lineman, but are you athletic and talented enough to recover and not get beat? And we saw that from him today. And it wasn't often. It was like a couple snaps, but he's really come along. He competed really well today in the run game and the pass game for Will Black did. So I was very happy about that. And I'll have to go back and watch the film again, but this was probably the most impactful I've seen Cam Herron so far. There were multiple snaps where I just noticed 57 knocking somebody off the ball. Still has, it's a redshirt freshman. There's things he's going to have to get better at. But that's something that you look at him and you say, okay, Cam's coming along. He's really pushing and really progressing. Grayson McHugh needs a lot of work, but Trev, you can see it even today, man. Like he is a clean in his pass pro, man. real clean athletically. Like he's going to be a good one. He's going to be a good one. Owen Dreebig was solid. He had some good snaps and a couple where he just kind of got beat around the edge. He kind of stopped his feet, started to lunge, and got beat late. I think it was Rodney Dunham beat him on a pass rush where he just kind of got turned around and Rodney beat him. And we'll talk about Rodney. But overall, I thought the offensive line, Trev, was solid. Had some wins, had some losses, which is kind of, it's going to sound crazy, but Joe Rudolph and Rob Delaney might disagree with me because they're offensive line coaches, and I'm sure Charlie Partridge and Nick Sebastian might disagree with me because they're D-line coaches. They both want to win every rep, but for me, I was kind of happy it was back and forth because it just shows you that both lines are really competing and getting after it today.
Agreed completely. I think some of what you're talking about in pass protection as well, I think it helps that they have significantly more length at tackle now as well, both height, weight, and length. I think that's been a big help out in pass pro. I'm with you. Let's switch gears, man. Talk about the defensive side of the ball. And this was, again, we're back-to-back weeks to talk about. It was a very vanilla game plan on both sides of the ball, even more so on defense. It was just very much trot out. Here's the play call. This is what we're doing. That was my read on today. I mean, there were no, simulating pressures. There was none of that. It was kind of just, hey, you're going out, and this is what you're doing. If somebody showed blitz, they were coming. And that was essentially the entire afternoon. And more zone coverage today. A lot of it. Saw some impressive young guys. Didn't see a whole lot from the first team. I mean, this will probably be the quietest game Tay Johnson will have the rest of his career inside of Notre Dame Stadium. Very lackadaisical today. No Leonard Moore, and then obviously still no Drake, still no Kingston. So that obviously played a factor as well. No Jason Onye, but yeah, those are some of my overall takeaways from the defense, big picture, before we dive into the players.
Look, I understand the frustrations fans have, and it's because of how the defense looked in the first three games that a day like today is going to cause the overreactions that it does. I get it. But I was not expecting a whole lot different today from a blitz standpoint. And Trev and I kind of tracked it. We wanted to see what I wanted to see was a defense that was more aggressive. And I didn't think they were very aggressive in some areas, and I thought they were in others. Run game, they're very aggressive. They see run, they fly downhill. I mean, they were real aggressive against the run today. Pretty disciplined, too. I thought the backside contained did a really nice job today. A couple times they weren't there with the second group, but, they're pretty stout. There was a play where I think it was Armo Mukum, and they tried to run it to the side of Armel Mukum and Boubacar, and they were both real physical, got to push, reset the line in their favor, knocked the offensive line back a little bit. There just wasn't room to go. I thought against the run, they were very aggressive. Against the pass, they were not very aggressive. And it's not even about blitzing, Trevor, and there wasn't a lot of blitzing today. But just like the seam pass to Mylan Graham's a perfect example. It's not that somebody tried to reroute him and missed. There was no attempt to reroute him. We've been talking about this. I've shown you clips of other good defenses that reroute. I just don't know how you think letting free runners get up the field against zone is the way to go with doing nothing to disrupt their routes. And that's why CJ Carr diced them up last week. And when they had success this week, that was a big reason why. And you can say, well, it's the DB coach. So Mike Mickens and Heron Henry both don't teach that? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Or maybe that's just what they're told to teach. That was frustrating. I don't mind a lot of zone coverage today. I didn't expect them to blitz a whole lot, but I'm a little concerned about the fact that Jersey scrimmage last week, this game this week, we just don't see them getting hands on. But what I also liked is I liked how aggressive the safeties were, though, closing down on routes, especially at Don. Don had a day today, just really driving on the football. I thought Luke Towns was very active today, getting after the football. Joey O'Brien looked good early until he got knocked out. And then, of course, Ethan Long came down late and made a great read. So it was a very vanilla defense, and I understand that. And so I'm not sitting there oh, they ran too much zone. It's it is what it is, right? And they were very aggressive playing against the run. It's just more of a philosophical concern that we continue to see, Trev, and we saw it in the Jersey scrimmage. We've now seen it here where they just don't get hands-on. They're just not – let me rephrase. They don't allow the secondary to be as physical as I think you need to be to maximize your cup, whatever your call you're making. You want to run 90% zone, brother, run 90% zone. I just watched the Seattle Seahawks win a Super Bowl playing mostly zone defense, right? Ohio State doesn't play man all day, and Indiana doesn't play man all day. They play way more zone than they play man. But there's got to be a level of physicality where you're trying to disrupt the timing of the offense, and that's something Chris Ash is going to have to do. And if it was just today that we saw that, I wouldn't be concerned. But the fact that we also saw that last week is a little bit concerning. I'm not concerned about the lack of blitzing today. No Drake Bowen, no Kingston Viliama-Asa, no Leonard Moore. I don't care about that. I didn't expect to see a lot of that today. But I also have to say, going back to it, I really like how this defense plays the run, though. They are physical and aggressive getting downhill against the run. Like, they're not going to let you run on them. And it's not that the offensive line didn't play well. It was that, the defense is just really good. The front seven is really good, especially the front four. I thought they were really good today, Trev. And that made life a little bit difficult for the Notre Dame offense.
Agreed. Look, man, a lot of takeaways from the defense. The other thing, too, that I will also – now, we also saw it consistent with the second and the third team. It's also very difficult for your mindset on defense to know that you can't bring somebody to the ground, and that's essentially every time the first team defense was out there, it was you basically weren't tackling anybody, which is why I was a little bit disappointed we didn't see Nolan James a little bit in more capacity with the first team offense. Would have liked to see that, but at the end of the day, it's one practice, it's one spring game. I get it at the end of the day, but I'm with you, man. The front four on defense was really, really impressive today. A lot of standouts on the defensive line. I mean, again, I wasn't expecting to see a whole lot from Boubacar today. I would have liked to see a little bit more from Bryce, but I think he's still continuing to grow, and it sounds from what Charlie Partridge has talked about, he's continued to grow this spring as well. I think Chris Ash also mentioned that in his press conference as well. But, dude, some of the young guys today had days. Now, you brought up Rodney Dunham earlier. Rodney Dunham he started to rotate in at the end of the spring game with the first team. I mean, he was impressive today. And it's not because he was going up against like a walk-on offensive lineman or a true freshman offensive lineman. I mean, there were a couple plays where he beat Matty Augustine. There was a play where he beat Owen Streebig. I mean, he played the run really well today. He was an impressive cat. Rodney Dunham is as advertised, and that was very, very promising to see.
Rodney's going to be a dude, Trev. There's no question about it. I mean, just his motor runs hot all the time. He's very advanced for his age. His twitch is just impressive. Like, he's a really talented kid. He's going to be a special player at Notre Dame. And I don't even mean like in a couple years, boy, that Rodney Dunham kid's going to be a player. I just mean like at what point in time in the 2026 season is that like going to go on for Rodney Dunham? And has it already kind of gone on for Rodney Dunham? He's going to be a factor because like Logan Thomas, it showed me some things today as a pass rusher that I thought was really impressive. But Rodney's just able to do it on rundowns as well that Logan cannot.
Yeah, agreed. There was also a couple of interior guys that I thought had really, really solid days today. And it wasn't just Tion Gray or Francis Brew or Armel Mookum. I thought Armel Mookum flashed. He's definitely still up and down a little bit and still coming into his own. But when the light's on and when the flash is hot, he's very, very impressive. It's just working on his level of consistency. But three guys that I consistently wrote down in my notes were Sean Sevillano, Davian Dixon, and Cole Mullins. I thought those three players today had a really good afternoon on Notre Dame's interior defensive line, especially towards the end. Davian Dixon, he's a player that we haven't talked about a whole lot, especially after Christopher Burgess's move to the inside. He was hurt during his true freshman season, so he kind of fell to the wayside. He wasn't a crazy, highly recruited kid. But Davian Dixon showed me some stuff today. He's a big kid, very strong. He was very disruptive on the interior Notre Dame's defensive line in the run and pass game. He didn't get a sack today, but he did a good job driving back. I think one play it was Devin Houston, one play it was Cam Herron, did a good job driving him back into the quarterback. He was a big part of Notre Dame having back-to-back sacks towards the end of the game. And then Cole Mullins, I thought, played against the run really well today. And then Sean Sevillano is just a massive person to move on the interior. I thought all three of those guys did really well today.
Yeah, and by the way, Davion Dixon's a redshirt freshman. This is only his second year at Notre Dame. Just responded to something in the chat. Yeah, Cole Mullins is very good. Sean Sevillano had a really active day today. He's still a big kid, but he just looks a little bit more nimble now, and he can kind of repeat plays more than he did when he was 340 plus. You could see it. You know what I mean? Like Trev, like his feet are just a little bit, looser with the less weight. I thought he had a nice day. I thought the interior, honestly, the only guy that I was not happy with today was Tion Gray. I thought he got knocked back way too much today, and I thought he played a little high and got put on skates a couple times. He had some nice plays too. I thought this is the best we've seen Francis Brew look so far since he's been here. Like he was very physical today, really got after it. I think Freeman said something like he's had a little like a minor thing, so that would explain why he hasn't. Didn't he say that in the press conference?
You're talking Francis Brew.
Francis Brew. Didn't
Bicep.
he say so? Bicep. Yeah. So I mean, that might explain why he didn't flash a whole lot in the couple, that when we saw him in the earlier periods, but today he looked like the kid we studied at Pitt last year.
Yeah.
Quick off the ball, playing strong, being physical at the point of attack. And not so much like he's not a guy that's going to make 13 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. He's the guy that's going to take the guard, drive him 2 yards in the backfield, force the running back to bounce, and somebody else cleans up the play. That's what he does so well, and that's what Notre Dame wants him to do. And he was full form today. But yeah, Armel, man, if Armel could just be 10% more consistent, he's a dude. But you're starting to see it though, Trev. You know what I mean? Like you're starting to see, like even when he doesn't do right, you can see him kind of, getting on himself. Like he knows he messed up. He doesn't have to wait to get to the sideline and have Coach Partridge, kind of say something to you. So yeah, that was good to see. But I mean, it's just the waves, dude. I mean, okay, we know Tion Gray, we know Brew, we know that Onye is going to come back. We know what Elijah Hughes can do. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we've also got Cole Mullins and Davion Dixon, Sean Sevillano, and Armel Mukum. And we didn't even really see – I didn't notice much from Christopher Burgess today. I'm going to have to go back and watch the film and kind of see how he did. Can't watch everybody. I mean, it's especially in a format like today. But just the depth they have at D tackle is really, really impressive. And look, you've got Marcus Fakatu, David Fuller-Runshoe, and Braden Parks on campus today. You picked a good day to show a disruptive defensive tackle room. So that was good. And then on the edge, I thought Keon was solid. This is probably the most hustle I've seen from Keon today. He still has a lot of work to do with his hands, but I thought his motor was running hot. It was better today. And I thought, look, who's really come along this spring that we haven't talked a lot about, but I just keep noticing? Joseph Reif. Like, he's starting to pop a little bit, Trev. He did it a little bit in the Jersey scrimmage last week. He did a little bit today. He's starting to pop a little bit for me. Like you know what? Like, he's got a chance at Notre Dame at some point in time. Like, will it be 2026? I don't know about that. But he's starting to kind of come into his body, and he's starting to look a little thicker and bigger, and he's starting to pop a little bit for me today. And the last couple of times we've seen him. But it's just – and it's so many different kids. Cole Mullins just had a series where he's like, all right, this is the Cole Mullins series. I'm just going to take this one over. Just quickness. He's strong at the point of attack. And the big thing for a kid like him is he's got to play with great pad level. And we saw that from him today. Certainly.
Yeah, that's the most promising thing with the defensive line, man, is unlike previous years, and I'm not going to call out a specific year, but unlike previous years, I don't think that there's going to be a significant drop-off when you see the second team rotate in. There were Notre Dame teams in the past where we just knew when the second team defensive line was in, they were going to struggle to generate pressure and the run game was going to struggle. I don't think that they're going to have that.
Do you remember in 2022, Al Golden's first year? And like early in the year, he just had this thing where he would just put the entire second team defensive line in the game.
Yes.
And like every time he'd do that, the other team would just go like right down the field and score.
They'd be in the red zone in like 2 minutes.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. It was like so maddening. That's not happening this year.
No.
You put the second team defensive line on the field, it's like, all right, they're good. They're good. Like they're fine. You're not going to do anything on them either. I mean, it's like, who would it be? It'd be Keon Keeley, Francis Brew, Rodney Dunham, and I don't know, pick a guy, Elijah Hughes, Davion Dixon, Sean Sevillano, Cole Mullins, Christopher Burgess, like pick a guy. Yeah, you're going to be pretty good. You're going to be pretty good. Dom Hulak plays with a really good motor. He's got a lot to learn on when it comes to how to use your hands to win. Like Dom is just a bull in a china shop, man. He is just running. He's trying to run through you every play. He's got a lot to learn, but he comes off the ball nice. He's strong. He's very strong. But he's coming along. But I was encouraged by what I saw from the edge today, Trev. I mean, we know what Boubacar and Bryce can do. But to see Keon really playing with the motor he had today, like he had a couple backside chase plays. He's starting to figure it out. Like, hey, it's just do the little things because the big things will come. And just watch him setting the edge effectively at times today. Seeing Rodney Dunham just full beast mode at times today. Ebenezer Utade is just, man, he's super twitchy. Joseph Reeve coming along. Logan Thomas had a sack today. For April, I'm pretty happy with where they are. They battled. That's the thing, Trev. That this D-line battles. I'm not saying the past D-lines didn't. We're just talking about this D-line. They compete.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they fight. Like, they look at every snap like it's a street fight. I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about, dude, I gotta, I'm fighting for there's this comedian of this dude, I think it's Derek Stroop, right? And he's always doing this, like, I'm fighting for my life over here, and it's like, that's the D-line on every play. And I love it. And when you're throwing waves in, it's like, you can have that mindset. Because, like, dude, I need you to go in there for 3 plays at D-tackle and give me everything you got, and then I'm sending the next guy in. And then you can come back and catch your breath. And then when I throw you back in there, give me everything you got for 3 more plays. And then, you know what I mean? I'll send another guy in there. And it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
100%. Much rather be having this conversation. That is for sure.
Yes.
Much rather.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the
work in progress. Everything is a work in progress. But for April 25th, very happy.
Let's talk about the linebackers, man. And this was a position group that I wanted to pay attention to today because I feel like on my part, throughout the spring, I've just been like, yeah, they don't have Drake. They don't have Kingston. They don't have this guy. Madden's 50-50. And we know what to expect from Jalen Sneed and Jaden Ausberry. But fact of the matter is that's a pairing that we haven't seen on the field in games too much together. And Jaden Ausberry's playing Mike. And so I wanted to pay a little bit of attention to them today. And a couple things. One, it was still hard to evaluate because they were in position to make a lot of plays, but they were going thud. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't, to the live eye, it doesn't look like they're making as many plays as they are. But a couple of my takeaways from the first 2 guys. Jaden Ausberry starting to look very comfortable at Mike, which I think gives Brian Jean-Marie a couple of options going into the season. Does that now put him in a position where when Kingston's working his way back, he doesn't also have to work back at Mike to spell Drake? And can he just focus on being a will and a pass rusher on 3rd down? I think that's interesting. Does it, give him a little bit more of a prowess on the field when he isn't at will? So I was very impressed from what I saw from Jaden Ausberry today. And Jalen Sneed had a really good day today. And I know he won, player of the game for the blue gold game. It was rightfully deserved. But, man, even in the thud periods, he was all over the field today. I personally have been waiting for the light bulb to go on for Jalen Sneed to be that every down off-ball linebacker and not just, the niche 3rd down pass rusher. And this play, he'd look really good. And then the next play, he looked a little bit lost as a redshirt junior. I did not see that problem from him today. He looks more comfortable dropping back into coverage. Looks like he knows a little bit more of what he's doing, and he's relying on his athletic instincts. But I thought he had a really good day today. Really good day. I was impressed from what I saw from Jalen Sneed.
Very physical coming downhill today. I was frustrated by what I saw from Jaden Ausberry today because of the fact that he seemed to be always in there when Aeneas Williams is in there. And there were 3 or 4 times where it's like he's stepping in the hole and he reads it perfectly and then he has to stop. And I'm like, come on, let him play. Like, let him go eat that. Let him eat, man. Like, what are y'all doing? Jaden should have had 9 tackles today if he was allowed to hit. I mean, like you said, Trev, he's getting very comfortable making those calls and those reads and doing different things. And I thought him and Jalen Sneed looked good this spring, and I thought, like you said, Jalen had a really good day today. He's very active. He was disciplined. That's the biggest thing for me with Jalen Sneed is, can you be assignment correct? Because like when he's assignment correct, Jalen Sneed, and assignment correct includes, it's all encompassing, knowing where to be, knowing how to get there, when to get there, and then what to do when you're there. And like, when he's there, he's good. And we saw good Jalen Sneed today. Like, he was very active, very physical to point of attack, flying downhill. A couple times, like, ooh, Jalen popped that one, just like coming in and stuffing the line of scrimmage. And even simple things like taking on lead blockers physically, which kind of stoned the blocker in the hole. Like, him and Cooper Flanagan had some really nice collisions today. Like, where I'm like, dude, I'm happy with how both of them went about that play. But I can't tell you how frustrated I was watching Jaden Alsbury today, because he would read it perfectly and then step into the hole and you're like, oh yeah, I can't hit this guy. I'm sure it had to be maddening for him today. Like, there was one play that Aeneas got like a 6-yard gain, and we just watched Jaden Alsbury just like lay him, just let him run by because he can't hit him. And if Jaden was allowed to flow and hit on that play's getting lit up at the line of scrimmage. Like, he was a thud period away from having a great day today. That was frustrating for me, because that's my dude. But it was nice to see him and Jalen doing well. I was once again impressed with Teddy Rizak today, Trev. Like, he still has to work on block destruction consistently, but he's making good reads, and he is very athletic. Very athletic. I was impressed with what I saw from him. And who popped a little bit for me today too was also, I thought Ko'Okoa was really, really active today. He is really quick and explosive in the box. He stood out to me today.
He is getting very good at diagnosing the run very quickly and flies downhill. I'm with you. He also sniffed out a screen at the tail end of the scrimmage, which I thought was impressive. He read the offensive tackle flying over to the flat. He came over, blew it up, and I think he got the 4th down stop. Like, it was ruled short. So I thought that was really impressive. Thomas Davis is still coming into his own. You see the athletic traits, but he's still swimming a little bit. Once that light bulb fully clicks for him, it'll be good. And then also a quick shout out to Kahanu Kia. It was good to see him back out onto the field. We didn't see him in the Jersey scrimmage. They sent him on a blitz a couple of times. He was out there. I think it looked like he was playing a little bit more Will than more so Mike today. So it was good to see him back out there. But yeah, the linebackers that stood out to me, obviously Sneed and Osbury. I'm with you on the second team. They had Teddy Rizak and Ko'Okoa running with the second team, and I thought that was impressive as well. So liked a lot from what I saw from the linebackers today.
Yep, I did too. It's an athletic group, even and without Drake, without Kingston. Madden today looked good. Seeing him run around, it was nice to see him running around. He was very active, very good. And he's going to be such a dynamic player when he becomes like the guy. He's so rangy. He's he can play the pass, he can attack the run. They're so loaded. I mean, if the linebacking group we see in the fall is what we saw today, it's Jaden Alsbury, Jalen Sneed, Madden Faremo, Teddy Rizak, Ko'Okoa, Kahanu Kia, Tom. That's going to be a top 10 to 15 linebacker unit in college football. Like just with what we saw today. Then you add Kingston and Drake Bowen to it in the fall, and you're like, dude, this is going to be so much fun. But I think those two not practicing this spring is really good for Jaden, for Jalen, for Teddy Rizak, for Madden Faremo. Now he's going for Ko'Okoa. He's got a ton of 2 reps this spring. I think you saw a lot of growth from those linebackers this spring because they got so many more reps with Drake and Kingston out. And I think I'm not going to say that not practicing this spring helps Kingston and Drake, but I don't think Drake as a 3rd-year starter is going to like take a step back because he didn't go through spring. You know what I mean? Right. I think Kingston will be fine, but it made the guys behind them a lot better. And I think that's going to make the room even better. But they're very active, very downhill. I've been impressed with what I've seen from the development of that group throughout the spring. And you got to give a lot of credit to Coach Jean-Marie. I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys that are playing either in positions they've never played before or have never really played meaningful downs. And I thought they looked good last week. I thought they were impressive this week and play really good football. They've got to do a little bit of a better job of getting, once they recognize pass, just humping it back. That's the one thing I want to see a little bit more consistently, effectively from the linebacker room, is that a little bit, but that's one of those things that comes last with young linebackers.
Let's kick it back to the secondary, Brian, and talk about the defensive backs that we saw today. Again, a lot of takeaways. Leonard Moore was out. Christian Gray played predominantly in the nickel today. There were a couple times when they went like their big, like, short yardage defensive package where he was then kicked out to the field. They had Jaden Sanders into the boundary, but I think we saw a lot of good from the defensive backs today. To your point, leading off with the veteran, Adon Schuler was looking to hit today. I mean, I wasn't expecting to see a whole lot from some of the veteran players, but Adon just strikes me as somebody who's, when he's on the field, he's going to make the most of his opportunities. Quiet afternoon from Tay Johnson. Totally fine with me. Paved the way for a lot of young players to have some good days. And I was impressed with some of the newcomers and some of the young DBs that we saw. Jaden Sanders, through the first part of the blue gold game today, I thought had a really solid day. I liked what I saw from him.
He struggled at first, Trev. You could tell he was a little rusty because he spent a lot of his time the last few weeks in the slot.
Yep.
Learning nickel. And then, oh, by the way, now you've got to play the Leonard Moore position. And I thought there was a couple times early where, like, the play he got beat deep by Micah Gilbert, where he got lost in the transition. And that, you know what I mean? Like, as Micah ran by him, it was a very awkward turn, and that allowed Micah to beat him. But what did he do? He recovered, and he didn't panic. He didn't panic and grab or run through the receiver. He read his hands, and when Micah flashed his hands, Jaden flashed his hands and broke up the pass. And Jaden wanted it more than Micah Gilbert did. So, yeah, the ball was underthrown. He got beat, but he recovered. And after that, I thought he was better. You know, you keep it, reading the stops, reading the comebacks. He had a real solid day. But you could tell early that he was rusty. My only question with Jaden Sanders is, does he have the long speed to be a boundary in the future? Because you did notice that a couple times today where it was obvious that, like, people were able to kind of stack him and get on top of him. Now, that could simply be, again, because of the rust from having played nickel, because it's very different footwork inside playing nickel than it is playing boundary. It's very different. I mean, just the eye discipline is everything about it is very different. And so was it just a thing where, his footwork was a little rusty and a little sloppy because he's been playing so much nickel, and that kind of had him just be a little bit just late with his transitions? Or is it because he just, when he opens and runs, he just doesn't have that necessary long speed to be there? That's kind of a TBD for down the road type of thing. But that's my only question mark with him. But hey, he's a smart, instinctive kid and physical and reads the ball well and recovered well, didn't panic. Those are some things. Yeah.
Another young guy that caught my eye today was Aiden Pouncey. He was very sticky in coverage, but with him and with Chaz Smith as well, but Aiden Pouncey specifically, he got targeted a lot when he was in. But he just needs a little bit more of that grown man strength, a little bit. Like he'll get strong enough to the point where he can start to break up some of these passes and get his hands in between the receivers once he gets a little bit more weight on him. But from a footwork standpoint, from a coverage standpoint, he was in the hip pocket of a lot of receivers today. Mm-hmm. It's just he lacks some of the overall play strength because he's a true freshman and he's like 6'3", 170-something pounds. Yeah. So once he gets a little bit stronger, I'll be very, very intrigued to see what Aiden Pouncey starts to look like.
Yeah, he's got a chance, Trev. I mean, you see it. He's got a chance to be a really good player at Notre Dame. There's no question about it. He's long. You say you think he's kind of skinny, so you think maybe he won't be as strong as maybe some other guys, but I think he's actually a lot stronger than you think when you see how skinny he is. He's a pretty tough kid. He really gets after it. Like with all of them, there's parts of his game that need work, and from what we've heard from him all spring, from people we've talked to, is there's this consistency, which is true for a lot of freshmen, but he'll have a couple snaps where it's just like, his technique wasn't right, or maybe guessed, a lot of young guys will guess, hey, I think they're going to run this here. And then you see that move and you drive on it. And then the next thing you know, they're running like a sluggo past you. But man, he's got really good recovery ability. He breaks in the ball very well. He's a very smart football player. I was impressed by him. And a guy that I thought had a good finish to the spring, and he had a rough start to the spring, but I thought he had a good finish to the spring. I thought Mark Zachary was pretty good today. He was pretty solid today. He had a really nice day. Very aggressive against Jordan Faison in coverage. Yeah, I liked what I saw.
Yeah, as did I. He was, I think he ended spring on a strong note, took advantage of his opportunity because he also trotted out there with the first team defense with injuries to Leonard Moore, and obviously Dallas Golden is out right now as well. So I was impressed with him. I agree completely.
Yeah.
How about?
I didn't get a chance to see much of Christian Gray today other than the seam route where he didn't get hands-on, but we've talked about that. I didn't get a chance to notice a lot of him. The touchdown pass where Chaz Smith was looking back to the defense and being like, what's going on, that was actually on the slot defender, and that was a walk-on player. But he's got to and Aiden Pouncey's the one that also somebody asked earlier. Aiden Pouncey is the one who got beat on the go route by Cam Williams, but he thought that was a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, Trev. When Cam got vertical on him, Ethan guessed comeback, and so he started to stutter. And then when he saw that Cam was still going, he then tried to recover and fell down. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, don't guess, read. And that's something that he'll have to get better at. But then, like, Chaz got beat on the one, or looked like on TV like he got beat. But if you have to go back and watch it, the slot is who caught the touchdown pass. It was a slot fade. And the slot defender didn't read it right, and Chaz was recovering, and that's why he was looking around like, what's going on now. He's got to learn to control his body language a little bit better, but as a freshman, you're going to understand that a little bit. But that was not Chaz that got beat on that particular play. Wanted to point that out a little bit as well. Sorry, Trev, go ahead.
No, you're good. You talk about that slot fade that Devin Fitzgerald caught for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
Devin was in the slot and Chaz was outside. Chaz, the slot defender, did not open and run. He started to react to the hitch, and then Chaz recovered. So unless I'm wrong on the coverage, it could be that it was cover 3, and he's got to run with that, and the flat defender's got to run to the hitch. It could have been that too, but I don't think Chaz thought that what it was. But either way, don't show your teammate up. That's something, that's something I would like to have seen a little bit.
Let's talk about the safeties and kind of take this defensive conversation home. And there was some impressive playmaking from the safeties today. I thought Joey O'Brien was off to a good start until he got hurt. And then I thought Ethan Long, you want to talk about somebody that I think, needed to end spring on a strong note. Joey O'Brien was surging up the depth chart, understandably so. Very talented kid, going to be very hard to keep off the field. I thought Ethan Long had a good day today. Not even just the interception at the end of the game. I thought he had a really good – there were a couple blitz plays where he made plays in the run game. Actually, I thought that was a good job of not blowing by the play. You see that sometimes with DBs coming on blitzes is they run right by the play because they're so excited to make the play in the backfield. I thought he did a good job of breaking down and making a tackle. I thought Luke Talich was kind of who he's been at Notre Dame the last couple of seasons. I use the term "old reliable," not because he doesn't do anything well. He's just always there, but he is always there to make the play, man. Luke Talich had another good day today. It was
no
impressive.
Picks from Luke Talich today. No picks from him today. I'm so disappointed in him.
He's Brian, a pick a day, man. Slow. You know that.
Yeah,
I know. Not fast.
I think they should yank his scholarship. He didn't make it. I'm totally kidding. But that's how Luke Talich is. When he doesn't make a pick, you're like, what's going on with Luke today? He didn't intercept any. But there's a couple he almost got to. I'm obviously being sarcastic for those who don't know me well enough to know that. He's always around the ball, dude. It's really fun to watch. Ethan Long needed today. Because from what I'm gathering, I don't think that he's in a danger of losing the second string role because he's not doing something correct. It's more about Joey O'Brien's just that good. I think Ethan needed it today. You could tell he was a little frustrated early, like he was trying to make a play. Like I think he feels the heat a little bit. This is my guess. I could be completely wrong. It's my guess. And he was kind of hunting plays a little bit today. And then I think he settled in and let the game come to him a little bit. And then he started making plays. But it just speaks to the depth there, Trev. I mean, Joey goes down, Ethan steps into the lineup, and he looks good, making plays. But, yeah, Adon was a man possessed today. No doubt about that. Tay was solid. Luke was Luke. And Ethan Long finished the spring off on a very high note. And, it's getting an interception is one thing, but he read it well. I mean, he read the route. He was patient. And then waited till the quarterback threw the ball to drive on the route and makes the pick. So I thought the safety play, I thought the DB play overall was solid. There were some ups and downs and some misses that we talked about, but overall I thought they were very competitive today. And they didn't panic after getting beat deep a couple times early. And I thought that was very important, because you get beat deep a couple times early, you may start to panic a little bit, and we didn't see that from them. Now, I personally would have liked if both times maybe the offense would have quarterbacks would have maybe thrown a slightly better balls. Maybe they score a couple of those times, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. But overall, I thought they did some good things.
I'm with you. I'm with you completely. Any final thoughts, Brian, just overall on the spring game as a whole?
I'm just glad there were no major injuries. It doesn't sound like Joey O'Brien's was a major injury. I'm just glad that there were no new major injuries. That's always at the end of the day what I want to see. So, yeah.
I'm with you. No major injuries, and we got to see a lot of the young talent develop. I'm with you completely. I'm glad that there were a lot of good takeaways, and the bulk of the offseason is still ahead. Unfortunately, there's still a ways away until Notre Dame kicks off their season, but that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
A couple of super chats in here. One from Moneybag Jake. Appreciate you. My conclusion on the blue gold game. Don't want to show too much offense, but got a little saucy with a no-look pass from CJ. Defense has potential to be elite. P's upgrading to IB Shamrock Club was money well spent.
Yeah, I think that's a PS, but I saw that. I think thinking about that, Trev, I'm like, P's. I'm like, what? Okay. I think the S was meant to be capitalized, but we appreciate that very, very much. Very, very much. Definitely appreciate your support. Definitely. And you should be getting your mug. I think I saw an email today saying that it got sent out today, I think, but I'll have to go back and look. But usually they come in pretty quickly, which is good. Had a super chat from Black Irish, my man Chris. Thank you so much. Great show as always. We appreciate you. Maury Invictus. Great coverage as usual, gents. Thanks, Go Irish. Appreciate you also very, very, very much. And Trev, we're obviously going to have a little bit of recruiting talk here in a little bit, but we wanted to talk about, before we get into, Zayden Gamble is going to make his decision at 6:30, so we're still about 10 minutes away from that. Gives us some time to wrap up a little bit of NFL draft stuff that's been happening the last couple of days. Obviously, yesterday we saw Malachi Fields and Eli Raridan go in the third round. Third round for Malachi wasn't super surprising. We'd hoped he would kind of sneak into the second round, but he got kind of drafted picked in the first half of the third round. Went to a great selection with the New York Giants. We'll talk about that, but I was happy to see Eli Raridan sneak into the third round. And there was that run on tight ends. And as we talked about, sometimes when those things happen, it can kind of bump people up. And I think that helped Eli Raridan quite a bit. And I think he's going to a great place. Like, Drake May likes to chuck the ball down the field, and he's going to one of the better deep ball tight ends in the draft. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go watch the NC State game. Eli Raridan was targeted 8 times this year on throws beyond 20 yards. All 8 were catches. So I think Drake May is going to very much like it. He's one of those guys, Trevor. I think you and I said this. He's one of those guys who I could see his best days being ahead of him. If he's willing to work at it, I could see Eli's best days being ahead of him still. Because his first 2 years, he had all the injuries, and he was a backup last year. And then this year, he was, he had some very good moments, but just consistency is the big thing for him. But I loved that pickup for him. I thought both of them were great placement. Giants are trying to be more physical with John Harbaugh, and Malachi's a big physical receiver and gives Jackson Dart a nice big physical threat weapon. I thought both of them were not only great to see him in the third round, but I thought good teams to see them go to.
Agreed. I love the fact that Eli Raridan went to the Patriots. I mean, when he's healthy, Hunter Henry is a premier target in that offense as well. Just the question is when he's healthy. Fact of the matter is with Eli Raridan in college, he had one healthy season with like a pass first quarterback. You know, and I mean, he was healthy for all of 2024, but Mitch Evans was kind of the number one guy. But yeah, this year, I thought Eli started to come on as a pass catcher, especially vertically down the field. Can't wait to see what he does in New England. And I do love the fit. I've said this before, but big-bodied receivers in the NFL are starting to become more complementary targets within offenses. They're no longer like the number one go-to guy in most offenses. And I think adding Malachi Fields as a complement to Malik Neighbors once he comes back healthy is a fantastic option. I'm glad that he went where he went. It would have been nice to say he went in the second round, but
Sure.
going in day two is still, I mean, Notre Dame had 2 day 2 picks. I thought they were only going to have 1.
Yeah.
Personally, I thought Eli was going to be a 4th round guy. I'm very, very happy that both guys went in day 2.
Yeah. And part of success in the NFL draft, Trevor, is also a lot of it's not just about, where you get picked from a round standpoint. It's what's even more important is who picks you. John Harbaugh's always liked big targets at receiver, and he's tried to find that for Lamar Jackson. I mean, obviously you had the tight end from Oklahoma, but Miles Boykin, they tried to draft. They've traded for other guys. Like, they've wanted that guy, and I think Malachi is one of those guys that he likes. Look, he can block. He can do some of the things that maybe that third tight end can do, but he can do it at receiver. I think that's a place where I feel like the fit for Malachi is very good. I thought the video of him committing where he's like, he's there with his family, not committing, but when they called him and he's like, it's good to be a Giant. And this family heard that, and they just went nuts. And he's trying to listen to John Harbaugh, and his family's going crazy in the background. I thought that was so awesome. And then, like you said, Eli going to the Patriots is great because they have a tight end. So, like, there's not going to be that pressure to come in and be the guy. He can come in, continue to grow, develop, be a pass game weapon, improve yourself as a blocker. I thought the placement there was perfect, getting to play with Drake, because I think Drake May's skill set is perfect for Eli Raridan's skill set, in my opinion, as that number 2 tight end. And as teams are going to more than 12 and 13 personnel, I can't tell you how many times I heard the word 13 personnel said during NFL draft coverage the last couple of days. It's like, come on. But I think Eli could be one of those guys that, he maybe only catches 20 passes, but it's like averaging 15, 16 yards a catch. He's a big play weapon and those kind of things. I thought the fit was absolutely perfect.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed completely. And then today, 2 more Notre Dame players got drafted. Billy Schrouth went, I believe, in the 5th round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Gabe Rubio got picked up by the Steelers, I believe.
Yeah, in the 6th round. So Billy Schrouth went in, I believe it was like the first half of the 5th round, is number 160 overall pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's good to see him drafted. It's the 2nd year in a row that Tampa Bay has picked a Notre Dame player. Obviously, last year they drafted Benjamin Morrison in the 2nd round. So they took him in the 5th round. I think the thing with him, Billy's a really good talent. And you hear it. You hear draft analysts talk about it, like, man, his film was really good. But you're talking about a guy that never finished a season from start to finish. He finished the season in 2024, but he missed 4 games in the middle of it. And then this year, obviously, he missed the season. Now, there were some rumblings he could have come back and played in the playoffs, but I don't know how true that was. But, man, he's got a chance, in my opinion, to be a 5th round steal, because he's a lot like Riley Mills. Riley's thing was Riley fell to the 5th round because of the injury. I don't think Riley Mills is a 5th round draft pick if he's not in, if he doesn't have a torn ACL.
No.
And I don't believe Billy Schrouth is a 5th round draft pick if he doesn't have 2 season ending or 2 significant injuries, lower body injuries in back-to-back years. Because you need to be able to count on guys that you draft early. And he wasn't that. He wasn't a guy that was gonna, kind of, he proved he couldn't be out there every week because of the injuries. But man, when he was out there, Trev, I had it in my story, my draft story for Billy. But think he played 22 games. Notre Dame went 19-3 in the 22 games that Billy Schrouth started. But Notre Dame averaged, let me find that statistic. It was 205.8 rushing yards per game in his 22 starts. And they also averaged 5.6 yards per carry in the 22 games that he started. And guess what? Run blocking's not even his best attribute. Pass blocking is. In the last 2 years, Billy Schrauth played 603 pass snaps. And in those 603 pass snaps, he allowed just 10 total pressures, 1 sack, and no hits on the quarterback. That's really impressive. Really impressive.
And he didn't allow a single pressure in the 3 biggest games he played in his career. And when I mean a pressure, I don't mean a hurry, a hit on the quarterback, or a sack against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, Penn State in the Orange Bowl, or Ohio State in the national championship. On the biggest stage, he shined. But I think it was Christopher Galloway a couple weeks ago said it. The best ability is availability, man. And but the fifth round, the tail end of the draft on day 3 is the time that you kick the tires on somebody with really, really high upside, and that's what Billy Schrauth is.
Which is why the kid McCoy from Tennessee got picked at the beginning of round 4 and not in day 2, because that's when you take those chances. You take those chances in round 4, 5, and 6, and 7, because with Billy Schrauth, for example, you got a day 2 talent in the 5th round because of injuries. That's it. It's not the tape that has Billy Schrauth being drafted in the 5th round. It's the fact that he had, like Chris said, like he's not available all the time. And that's something you really want from all positions, but you especially want that from offensive linemen, where continuity is more important than any other position in the game. So it's very important that you can be there, and I think that's a great pick for the Buccaneers. And then the surprise, and we said last week, we said we could see someone looking at Gabriel Rubio for the same exact reason. Gabriel Rubio is a draftable player off film. His film is that of an NFL draft pick. But Gabriel's another guy that's never played an entire season. Well, actually, he played one. His redshirt freshman year was the 1 year he started and finished the year. The last 4 years, 3 years, injuries have kept him from being that guy. And, it's been disappointing to see that, but I'm super happy for him because I like Gabriel quite a bit. He's a really good kid, but it just was one of those things where he just couldn't stay on the field, Trev. But the Pittsburgh Steelers said, hey, like you said earlier, I understand that this guy couldn't stay healthy, but here's what I know. When he was on the field, he was a dog. And so we're going to take a chance on him in the 6th round and hope that when he gets to the National Football League, for whatever reason, he can stay healthy and be that guy. And I think that's what they're hoping for.
Yeah. Absolutely. He has all of the ability in the world to be a strong rotational piece on the interior of that Steelers defensive line, man. And I hope it works out for him. I really do. And plus, a lot of people like to go back and have like revisionist history when it comes to the NFL draft. Nobody's going to go back and look and be like, I can't believe you took so-and-so in day 3 at the end of the 5th round. Like nobody does that. I mean, it's not like anybody drafted Gabe Rubio or Billy Schrauth with injury history in the middle of the 2nd round, because it's like, well, his film. You know what I mean? So I'm happy for both of those kids. I'm excited to see how they do at the next level.
So, Trev, we're going to transition into our discussion of today's big story, which is that 2027 safety Zayden Gamble is ready to make his college commitment. He is picking right now. He's given his thanks right now. He's deciding between Notre Dame, Miami, Florida, and Ohio State. Zayden is a 6 foot, 185-pound safety from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, from St. Thomas Aquinas. And big-time football player, 65 tackles, 5 breakups, 3 interceptions, 3 tackles for loss this past season for St. Thomas Aquinas, who went 14-1 and won a state championship, and beat Lakeland 29-0 in the state championship game. And he had 6 tackles, an interception, and a breakup in that game. So very, very talented player. His dad, interesting, Trev. I'll appreciate that. You'll appreciate this on my part. His dad, David Gamble, because I've had people say, is he Chris Gamble's kid? No, his dad played in the NFL, but it's not Chris Gamble. His dad is David Gamble, who was on the Broncos' 1997 Super Bowl team. He was a wide receiver that played at New Hampshire. So his dad played offense. So very talented young man. Teammates of Julius Jones Jr., who's obviously a big-time recruit, musket player for Notre Dame, also teammate of Mark Matthews, who's arguably the best tackle in the country, Not looking at Notre Dame anymore, but he's a very talented football player. Reminds me a lot of guys like Xavier Watts and Don Schuler, which we'll talk about. But Zayden is consensus top 250 player, consensus 4-star recruit. Grades out as the top 150 on the Irish breakdown board. Just a little, we'll be announcing his commitment soon. But as I said, it's going to come down to Notre Dame, Miami, Florida, and Ohio State are his finalists, Trev. So we'll talk more about him here very, very soon. Very, very soon.
I mean, again, it's just another talented player from down south where before he makes his commitment, it's another Florida kid that Notre Dame is in the final running for. And this is what I'm talking about at Notre Dame looking to stack classes and build up those pipelines. They just got a commitment from John Gay, who's also from one of those recruiting hotbeds that Notre Dame is trying to generate and really start to build up. So at the bare minimum, it's great to hear that Notre Dame is a finalist for some of these kids that are down in Georgia, down in Florida, down in Texas, out in Pennsylvania, out in California. It's a good spot to be in, man. It's a really good spot.
Yeah. Well, and Trev, we've talked a lot about, states that are very important to Notre Dame and how Florida's been a state that's been hard for Notre Dame to really crack. Because some years you can have success there and some years you can. And you've got to be smart enough and wise enough and work hard enough to understand the years where there are a lot of Notre Dame guys in Florida and it's worth the time. And then years where maybe there aren't a lot of Notre Dame guys and maybe you don't make that commitment to the state. But, Notre Dame obviously a much bigger part of their recruiting efforts this year. And I think part of that's who you hired. I mean, Brian John Marie is recruited the state. Aaron Henry is from the state of Florida. He played in Florida in high school. You get Sean Shivers, obviously. Javon Codlin is recruited state. So I think they've got some guys with some track records and connections down there, which has helped them be able to connect. And this is one of those years where there's just a decent amount. I mean, you got 2 kids committed for Florida already. You're trying to get Zayden Gamble. We'll see what he does in a little bit. Love where they are with Champ Mons, who's from Florida. And then, of course, you're still trying to get Julius Jones Jr. So could end up being a big one. So now we're getting ready to see Zaden's about to make his announcement. And we'll go here once he makes the decision.
Looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a good one.
So he's given his final thanks. These always take a little bit. So yeah, they always take a little bit to get going, but he's given his thanks, thanking God, thanking his family, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's struggling to say it. Looks like. Oh, he's doing the hat thing. Picking up Miami hat, put it down. It's probably going to picked up the Notre Dame hat, put it down. Picked up the Ohio State hat, put it down. He's going to put all 4 hats down and then open his jacket up. Watch. Florida hat. Well, I put the Florida hat down. Let's see what he does. Take the Notre Dame hat, and he's committed to Notre Dame. So Zaden Gamble has committed to the University of Notre Dame, everybody.
Bang. Well, you guys know how we do it here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We're going to talk intro. We're going to go backstory. Obviously, talk about what went into this recruitment. We're going to talk class impact. We're obviously going to dive into the film on this very talented player. And then we're going to talk about what's next on the recruiting trail. Brian, this is a big commitment, really big commitment at safety.
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, safety was such an important need in this class this year, Trev. I mean, we've talked about how they've landed some very talented players in recent seasons, but the numbers are still a little bit thin. You could be down Tay Johnson and Don Schuler after this year. Jadon Blair transferred after the offseason. So there's good numbers there. You had arguably the nation's #1 DB class in the country last year, but only one of those guys was a pure safety. And that's Joey O'Brien. So this was a very important year at safety. And, of course, you had Khalil Terry decommit. Part of the reason is, again, we said last week, is there's just guys on the board that they liked better, and Zayden Gamble is one of those players. And so, you're getting young man, as we mentioned earlier, consensus top 50 recruit. He grades out on the Irish Breakdown board as a top 150 caliber player with top 75 player upside. Smart, instinctive. We'll dive into the film and show you guys what he can do. But being able to dip into the state of Florida, beat Miami and Florida and Florida and Ohio State for him is huge. And you talk about the backstory, Trev. This is a kid that kind of Notre Dame had been on for a while and they had good a relationship, but Florida was the team to beat for a while. There was a time when Miami was the team to beat, and then when the year kicked off, Florida was the team to beat. And I said coming into his visit in March, he came in for that first big junior day. I said, look, right now, Florida's the team to beat. Everybody says Florida's the team to beat. I said, but this kid's got a really good relationship with Notre Dame, and he's a different kind of kid. And I could see him being really impressed with Notre Dame. And coming out of the visit, it was not a done deal, but it was like, they're going to be really hard to beat. And Notre Dame never backed down. They never backed off. They kept on him. They kept building that relationship and got it done. And so this is a big-time commitment. You needed this commitment from Zayden Gamble. You need to load up at safety. They've already have 3 DB commits, but none of them are pure safeties. Now, John Gay, as we broke down last week, can play safety, but they're recruiting him first and foremost to play nickel. So now you got a guy at safety that certainly brings starting ability and playmaker ability in the mold of, I'll just go in order, the Adon Schulers, the Xavier Wattses, and the Alohi Gilmans. He's not like Kyle Hamilton. He's not like Joey O'Brien. He's not like Tate Johnson. Just like those guys are not like Xavier Watts or not like Don Schuler, and they're not like Alohi Gilman. They're different players. And so to go down to Florida and beat Miami and Florida for a kid that they want at this position is a huge win. Huge win. And this is also Aaron Henry saying to the rest of the new coaches, hey, y'all, where y'all at? I got me 2 now. And 2 from Florida. So big time pickup for Notre Dame. And Trev, you know this. I've been talking about Zayden Gamble since before we thought Notre Dame was going to get him. This is one of my favorites in the class because he's not ranked as high as he should be because he's just not fast. He's not a burner. Neither was Xavier Watts, neither is Adon Schuler, neither is Alohi Gilman. But they're big-time football players because the rest of their skills are outstanding. And it doesn't take very long to dive into his film, whether you're talking about game film or highlight film, to say this kid is a ball player, an absolute ball player. This is a big pickup for the Irish.
Film doesn't lie, brother, and I agree with you completely. This is an absolute stud. I mean, you started talking about class impact, too, talking about what it means for this class to get a true player at safety because, you know, one of the things that I love that Mike Mickens did is he got a lot of fluidity in the secondary. It's like he could play this, he could play this, he could play this, but what do you need in the secondary? Sometimes you just need solidified guys. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's okay to say, no, he is going to be a boundary corner. No, he is going to be a safety, and that's what Zayden Gamble brings to this class. Some of the particulars, man, he's, I believe, the 10th overall commitment in the 2027 class, the 5th defensive player to commit.
He is the 5th defensive. They're now 5-4-1, 5 defensive, 4 offensive, 1 specialist.
Okay.
He is, yep.
Perfect. You said top 150 on the Irish Breakdown message board, on the Irish Breakdown big board. He is a top 250 consensus guy, means a 4-star consensus recruit amongst the national services. And to your point, man, when you pop in the film, not hard to see why. And we talked about it at the beginning of the show. He's a Florida kid. And that's a place where Notre Dame is really trying to make an imprint, especially when there's talent there that's worth going down to get. Zayden Gamble is one of those guys that was worth going down there to get.
Yeah,
that is
no
without a doubt.
Well, and, you know, like so we saw it last year. They went down to Florida, got Noah Grubbs, went down to Florida, got Aiden Pouncey. So they're definitely trying to make a concerted effort to go back down to Florida. And this year they're taking it. It's like last year on steroids. You know, I mean, they're trying to take it to another level. Of the 10 commits in the class, 3 of them are now from Florida. And there's 2 other players on the board that if you're on the Irish Breakdown Premium board, then you know this. There's 2 other players from the state of Florida that I really like where Notre Dame is at right now, and that's Julius Jones Jr. and Champ Mons. And so obviously those are 2 guys that I'm pretty, again, work to be done, but I like where Notre Dame is right now. So I don't think they're done in the state of Florida yet. And of course, there's a lot of 28 offers already out to the state of Florida. So when you talk about, you know, impacting a class, being able to go down to Texas and have success, they've got a running back from Texas that just ran a 10.43, who's over 200 pounds and just ran a 10.43 as a junior, and Lathan Wisington. You're able to go down to North Carolina and get kids every year. You went down to Florida, got Amari Irvin at linebacker from IMG. And not only are you getting players from Florida, you're getting 3 players from Florida from 3 outstanding programs. IMG, Chaminade Madonna down in Miami, where John Gay plays, is one of the best schools in the state. And then, of course, IMG is not just one of the best players in the state of Florida, but one of the best teams in the nation. They finished this last year as the number 10 ranked team in the country, went 14-1. And as I said, beat Lakeland, who's a big-time program, 29-0 in the state championship game. In a game where I'll repeat for those who maybe just joined, he had 6 tackles. Zayden Gamble had 6 tackles, 1 interception, and 1 pass breakup in that state title game. So he can ball. He can absolute ball.
Yeah, those numbers will play. That's for sure.
Yeah,
that is for sure. Brian, you know me.
I want to do one thing real quick. Looking at the class impact thing from this standpoint, Trev, is the ability to get a pure safety. We talked a little bit about it before, but the ability to get a pure safety, I think, takes a little bit of the pressure off of the staff that they were able to get a pure safety in the class, that they can say, okay, we got this one. We really only need for sure one more. Now that you've got Zayden Gamble in the class, you can like narrow your focus and go out there and get that. But, you've got 2 corners now, 2 pure corners, a pure nickel and a pure safety. You're getting very close to kind of wrapping this thing up and having yourself just another outstanding haul. And you talk about class impact. Zayden Gamble helps you get in a position where you're going to start talking about Notre Dame is stacking DB classes. And I think you actually can say this. Now, they've got work to still be done to finish it off, but when you've got Xavier Hassan and Ace Austin, who are top 100 recruits, and you got Zayden Gamble who's a top 250 recruit, I would argue even better than that. You got a guy like John Gay that I also graded as a top 250 recruit. Excuse me, top 250 recruit. This is what stacking classes looks like. And so you couldn't say that prior to today. You were working towards that, but when you had no safeties in the class, you couldn't say stacking another class, baby. You were short on a position you needed. I wasn't panicking about it. It's April, but you didn't have a guy in the class. But now that you have Zayden Gamble, you can now say you got 4 guys, all very talented players at 2 corners, a nickel, and a safety. You're now stacking this class back to back. And now it's just time to go out there and finish it off with just that one more big time player that they really need. And that's going to be one more safety. Now, I think there's some other corners they're still looking at because there's some guys with some positional flexibility, but this is a big one for Notre Dame.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. It allows you to continue this big game hunting. And the thing that I love is Aaron Henry did not take any time about, there were questions after Mike Mickens left of, is the recruiting going to take a hit? I think Aaron Henry said, no, I got us. Let's keep this thing rolling.
Yeah.
It's a good spot to be.
No doubt. Now I just, I think of some other things to talk about, Trev, before we move on to the film, because I just know Trevor's always so anxious to watch the film that I figure I'll just stall and start getting him a little bit antsy and start doing the shakes over there.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just pull up the film on my laptop. I'll just start watching it.
Well, just because we're not watching as a group doesn't mean I can't watch the film. But no, we're going to dive into some film here. And you guys are going to see what we're talking about. The first thing you're going to see, he's listed at 5'11", Trev. I think he's taller than that. I was told he's 6 foot. You watch him up to next to like Marcus Freeman and stuff like that. He's about Marcus Freeman's height, if not Marcus Freeman's height. So he's got good size. He's got good length. He's got a really nice frame. He's 185, 190 pounds, depending on who you talk to. Smooth athlete. But the first thing you're going to notice on film, Trev, this is one of the smartest safeties in the country. This kid's ability to read and have route look at this. He's dropping back middle of the field, sees the route crossing his face, watches the quarterback read, plants, redirects, and then look at him find that over route, drive on it, and time the play perfectly to break it up. He's got an extremely high football IQ, Trev. This kid knows where to be, and you also see he plays field and boundary. He plays over the top. He plays off the hash. He plays in the alleys. He comes downhill. He does a lot of things, but just watch him read this play and get over to the football. This is a really smart football player, Trevor. This is why now you see why people see why when we talk about him, we talk about Xavier Watts and Alohi Gilman and a Don Schuler. This kid's got a wicked brain for the position.
Oh, his timing and his break on the football is exceptional. I mean, in the first clip, you see him open up his hips, stay in phase with the tight end or that wide receiver running an over route. And then in the last clip, you see him just drive on the football. Great timing. Yeah, I'm with you, man. His football IQ is exceptional.
Yeah. Just a really good feel for the game. Look at this. Look at him undercut that route. Look at him. He's reading the route, but he doesn't take his eyes off the quarterback. Look at that. That's such a great play right there. This kid is a really smart football player. The big thing is, Trev, is he's not a burner. He's in the Xavier Watts, Salohi Gilman, Don Schuler, mid 4.5 to 4.6 range probably is where he'll be at, when it comes combine time. But he's a really good athlete. And that's something that I think is why a lot of NFL teams completely screwed up when it came to Xavier Watts is they saw 4.55, 4.56 and thought, oh, not a great athlete. No, he's actually an outstanding athlete. He's just not a burner. And those two things don't always go hand in hand. And I think Zayden's a similar situation where, no, he's not a burner. He's a very good athlete. He's very smooth. He's very fluid. His transitions are very natural. He can open up and run with ease. Watch this play right here. Watch him plant on this back foot and drive on that route. Yeah. Like, that's a good athlete right there, Trev. This is not only a smart football player, but this is a guy that understands angles and timing, but this is also someone who can quickly plant and fly downhill and break up a pass. This is a good football player. He's taking this. So this may not look like a lot, but let me talk you through this play. Look at his body language and look at his alignment pre-snap. You see two things. One, he's faced outside. He's kind of got his butt to the middle of the field and he's inside leverage. So what's he trying to tell the receiver to do? I'm not going to give you the inside. I'm going to force you outside, right? So he's trying to take that away. Well, the receiver tries to go inside anyway, and watch him flip his hips and say, nope, I told you, you're not getting this ball. I'm not going to let you get to the football. And so those are the things you see constantly from Zaden Gamble, which is why he's constantly around the football. And that's why I say I hate doing this, because you all know how I felt about him. But as a safety, it's hard not to see Xavier Watts. And that's a completely unfair comparison, because Xavier Watts is one of the greatest safeties ever played at Notre Dame. But it's hard not to see it when you're watching this film. Same body type, same type of athleticism, same high football IQ, same smart tackling. Like, this is the kind of thing that you'd see Xavier make. He's not going to come lay you out, but it's in space. I read it. I'm going to play with the proper angle. I'm going to go low. I'm going to make the tackle in space. He's the kind of kid you're going to see down the road doing what Xavier did against Georgia, where 10 guys on defense are going one way and Xavier's going the other way, because he's the only one that knows exactly where the play's going before it's even declared. Zayden has that kind of potential from a football IQ standpoint, but he also is very similar to Xavier athletically, and that's important, because you could be a wicked smart. Trev, at the D3 level, I coached some of the smartest players I ever coached were D3, but they were DBs that ran 4.9s. You know what I mean? That's the reality. So, yes, he's wicked smart, but he's also a very good athlete. And here's just another example of what we're talking about. Watch the redirect, right? Watch him. He's in a cover 2 pedal. Watch him plant and quickly get downhill, get his eyes on the receiver, and knock the ball out of his hands. Like, he does stuff like that all the time. All the time.
Not too choppy when he redirects either. Sometimes you'll see defensive backs, especially at the high school level, when they go and they plant on their back feet, get a little choppy with it, similar to a wide receiver at the top of their route break. But, man, not him. He's very smooth athletically. And to your point, that's what Xavier Watts was, man. Mm-hmm. Like, Xavier Watts didn't have 4.3 speed, but he didn't need it because he was a very smooth, fluid athlete, and his brain was just next level.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He knew the game of football. He was smart. He understood the game of football and studied. That's the other thing too, is he studied the game. Xavier studied the game, and Zayden is – look, I understand he's smart, but there's no way he's doing all this just on pure knowledge. You can tell he studies. You can tell he's prepared. You can tell – you can see him communicating to his teammates when guys are in motion. You can just see all the things that you want to see from a guy with a super high football IQ. And, he'll need to get stronger, as do almost all juniors in high school, but he's a very good tackler. He's not a guy that's going to come down and just, lay people out. He's not Harrison Smith. He's not Kyle Hamilton as a hitter, but he's a willing tackler. But he's also smart enough to know that you don't get brownie points for punishing someone. It's about make the tackle. Do your job, make the tackle, and that's what he does.
And that right there is a smart play. Can you go back to the start of that play? I've seen so many
right
DBs
here?
on film. Yes, I've seen so many DBs on film try to go for the pick. If he tries to go for that pick and misses, that wide receiver has a lot of green in front of him with 2 blockers. That's such a high football IQ play to break down, be patient, wait for the tackle, and stop it for no gain or a loss of 1. It's textbook.
Yep, and that's what he does constantly, Trev. Constantly. And you'll see in here too, like I think he's a safety. I think he's a pure safety, but you guys also know that I love versatility. I love versatile defenders. And I do think he's someone that could play in the slot. I don't know that like I would necessarily like try him there initially. I want him to be a pure safety, but you see things, Trev, like even like this play right here. These couple plays right here. This is him playing safety. Sometimes safeties are going to come down and play in the slot, which means you could play him in the slot if the need arose. And in some ways, he's like a bigger Jordan Clark when he's playing in the slot. You know what I mean, Trev? Like, and he could do that. I want to see him on the back end. But here's my point. Let's say in a couple years, Zayden Gamble is one of your 5 best DBs, but he's your 3rd best safety. Okay, are you just leave him at safety, or are you going to say, hey, man, we want to get you on the field sooner, and we think that could be you moving to nickel, so let's make that move. That's what I mean is like that's when you can see it like, okay, like that's what Zayden brings to the table. Not that I'm going to play him in nickel, but that if the need arises, I am going to play him the nickel. Like this is a great play too. Watch him read the quarterback and go high because he sees where the ball's going. Like it's really good football player. Really clean transitions. That's what you were talking about earlier, Trev. Really efficient footwork. That's kind of the thing that I see with him is he's got really efficient feet, really efficient footwork when he's working. There's not a lot of wasted motion with him, and so you can tell he's well coached. Obviously, his dad played in the NFL as a receiver, but he plays at one of the best programs in the state of Florida, and you're getting one of the best players in the state of Florida. I think at least 2 of the outlets, have him ranked as the number 1 safety in the state of Florida.
I believe so.
Which is I'll take that. I'll absolutely take that. So yeah, there's a lot to like here.
Teams highlights on here too. You gotta love that.
Yeah,
I know Marty Biaggi was happy to see that little clip on that. I'm with you. Just a little offense.
Yeah, this is the last play. He catches a little pass here over the middle. So, yep, and that's the extent of his offensive clips. So when you got like Julius Jones Jr. and guys like that on offense, you don't really need a guy like that to play both ways. But now I think y'all can see in that film why I'm so high on Zayden Gamble and why I think this is such a big pickup.
Brian, let's take this conversation home and talk about what's next for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail in the secondary and just big picture overall.
Well, the biggest thing is in the secondary now is you've got 4. And you only need 5. 5 is the goal. You wanted 2 corners, two safeties, and a nickel. That was kind of where Notre Dame was. And there's still some guys on the board. I did a names to know last week. I broke it down. I put broke down 6 DBs for Notre Dame, and one of the guys on that list was John Gay, who just committed Notre Dame. Another player on that list, Trev, was Zayden Gamble. So now I had Zayden and John Gay listed at safety because I didn't make a nickel position. There's one more safety on the board, and that's Gavin Williams. So like now if I'm Notre Dame, I'm putting all my energy, all my effort, all my power, all my resources, everything I have when it comes to secondary recruiting for me, in my opinion, is now going to get Gavin Williams. Like that is what's going to that's going to determine whether or not Notre Dame finishes this cycle with one of the better DB classes or arguably the best DB class. Like there's no doubt right now they have one of the better DB classes. Like this is you got two top 100 corners, a really good nickel. You've got, top 250 safety, one of the better safeties in the country, but you want to take this thing over the top to where for the second year in a row, you're in the conversation for best DB class in the country, go get Gavin Williams. That's a big one for me, Trev. Like, that's a must get. And I don't care about beating USC. Like, that just doesn't move the needle for me. I don't care about that anymore. Florida, I mean, USC cares about that because they're still chasing Notre Dame. For Notre Dame, it's like, I don't care about USC. We're trying to go out and win a championship. So that's why Gavin Williams is so important to me. Like, that is one that puts things over the top if you're able to do it. Like, he's the difference between this is already a really good DB class. You get Gavin Williams and you have an elite DB class, in my opinion. That's how important he is to Notre Dame. And that's why getting him is so important. And now that you got Zayden Gamble and you got John Gay in the class, now you can focus your time and your energy in secondary recruiting on him. But he's not it. I think I've said this also, that there's a world in which they could get to 6 DBs if the right guys want to come. And there's three other corners on the board. I think 2 that they like more than others. Obviously, Tavares Harrington's one. We've talked about him a lot. And then also Greedy James is another player that the staff really likes, who could play safety, who could play corner, he could play nickel. I believe even if they get Gavin Williams, that they would still push for those 2 kids. If they don't get Gavin Williams, I think you push even harder for those 2 guys, in my opinion. And so, but that's where secondary recruiting is at, is those are the 3 guys. If you can get 2 of those, then for the second year in a row, you've landed the nation's best DB class. I think if you just get Gavin Williams, that's true. If you get 2 of those guys, then it's not even a conversation anymore. But Gavin Williams is still the key for me. Now, for the Notre Dame staff, I believe that they view all those guys as they want. But there's no question that Gavin Williams is the big dog left on the board. With all due respect to the other guys who I know the Notre Dame staff loves, that's the big dog on the board. That's the separator. For the class overall, I think we're starting to see that run that we talked about would eventually come, that, April, May run. We're starting to see it. Yeah, John Gay commit on, was that Monday or Tuesday, Trev? Do you remember which day that was? Was that Monday?
That was Monday, yes.
So John Gay, the 3rd, commits on Monday. Now on Saturday, Zayden Gamble goes public. And for those who are premium board members, this is also not one of my 2 dancing gifts. Those are still out there. So, so that is a little nugget on that one. So this is not one of the 2 dancing gifts. But, Champ Mons, the quarterback from Florida that visited last week, I really like where Notre Dame is with him. Now it's just about kind of closing the deal with him, and hopefully they can do that soon. You obviously have some big-time players on campus this weekend. You had David Fuller-Runshu on campus. You had Marcus Fakatu on campus. And, of course, one of my favorites in the class, Braden Parks, on campus, who's an absolute must-get for me. Doesn't get nearly as much attention as Fakatu and Fuller-Runshu, and I understand why. But, folks, I'm telling you, that kid is every bit as good as those other 2 guys, in my opinion. And he's the most pure inside guy of those 3. Braden Parks is the only one of those 3 that hasn't talked to the Notre Dame staff about getting a shot to play defensive end. Braden Parks knows exactly where his money is made, and that is inside. I'm an A-gap, B-gap guy, baby. That's Braden Parks. And so he was on campus this weekend, or supposed to be on campus this weekend. As I've said before, if you're a premium member, you know what I've said about Julius Jones Jr. It's funny, Trev, how this works, right? You get people jumping in the chat who aren't on the premium board, who are like, hey, I heard this week of this about. I'm like, yeah, if you were a premium board member, you'd have heard that 3 weeks ago when we started putting that out there. And then obviously Abraham Cisse was on campus this past week as well. They absolutely crushed that visit. They're starting to heat up again, Trevor, and I think we're going to see them go on a bit of a run here in April and May. I don't know that it'll be as big as last year, but it's going to get them caught up. And then, of course, you've got to really close it out in June and July. That's going to be a big one. But sometimes guys commit right early. Zayden Gamble 2 weeks ago was talking about, I'm committing on July 16th or something like that. Then, Notre Dame's able to convince them that, hey, man, if you want to be here, then be a leader of this class. Join, commit, be a leader of this class. Help us get some other guys. And I think that's one of the things that Zayden Gamble decided to do is, I'm going to make that decision now and try to help this staff fill out. So it's a big one in a lot of different ways. So, and offensively, I think, receiver, they're getting close. They've got a kid on campus this weekend that I'm very curious to see how things go with Jackson Coleman, who's on campus this weekend. Obviously, Cade Cooper's a guy they're still pushing with. The tight end recruiting is getting a little bit interesting. I think they're really pushing hard for Cam Wagner. They're still very much in the game for Albert Simeon and Leighton Von Brandt. So Notre Dame's getting close to, putting together that kind of class, Trev. And guys like Zayden Gamble get you closer to that, hey, second year in a row, top 3 to 5 class. But that's going to ultimately be determined by what comes next is going to determine whether this is a top 5 class, top 7 or 8 class, or is this a top 1 to 3 class like last year's class was? And so, those guys, the guys that I just mentioned are the big reason, are going to be the big factors in whether or not, can you close on Abraham Cisse, who's a 5-star? Can you close on David Fuller-Runshoe, Braden Parks, Marcus Fakatu? Can you close on Julius Jones Jr.? Can you close on Gavin Williams? Can you close on, the offensive linemen that we talked about, Albert Simeon and Cameron Wagner? And then can you find some linebackers in this class? That's really the big unknown right now. And they've made great, progress. They offered Sean Fox from In-State. They did a great job with Caden Henderson. They're not the leader. They still have a lot of work to do there, but I think they were able to get him to commit to a visit. You've got Roman Igwe. I always struggle to say his name. I'm sorry, Roman. But he's, they're doing better with him. They're starting to come back with him. I think that's the big question mark right now is, will they be able to catch up at linebacker like they are in other places? And that's something that Brian Jean-Marie is really battling to get on. But he's putting in the work. But it's got to change. There's the players on the board for this to be another number 1 to 3 class. It's just about how do they close over these next 2 months. That's going to be the big key. And hopefully they can do with a lot of those guys what they did with Zayden Gamble. And close strong. Because this is a good football player, man. People always ask me, like, who are your favorite guys in this class? Well, this is one. This is my Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watts, Jaden Alsbury, like one of those guys. He's one of those players. I absolutely love Zayden Gamble's film. Love him as a football player.
Well, I'm glad we were able to cover his recruitment and his commitment. That is absolutely for sure. That is for sure.
We did have a super chat that popped up earlier. James Salumi said Lou tribute on the unis this year. I haven't heard anything about that. I would assume that they're going to do something. I would imagine they're going to do something in the fall. What that is, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. But thank you for your super chat. I appreciate that very much.
Folks, that's going to do it for us here this evening on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, we will be back on Monday to kind of go over the NFL draft recap. We're going to dive a little bit more, I believe, into the blue gold game after we have a chance to dive into the film and sit down and watch some of that. So a lot more IB offseason content coming your way. On your way out of this show, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But now that we have basically the longest duration of the offseason ahead of us, really, the best way to stay in tune with everything Notre Dame football is be a premium message board subscriber at boards@irishbreakdown.com. There's a lot of people in the chat. We talk about it every day in the show. Your money does not go to waste. It will be put to good use. It's a great community over there. Please be sure to sign up. Premium message boards at boards@irishbreakdown.com. Have a fun and safe rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.